Hi, welcome to the Finding Home, Breaking Free from Limits audio blog. I'm Joleen. Today's blog topic is Help! This spiritual wellness stuff isn't working for me. I'm pleased to report that in almost all areas of society, the inclination towards spiritual wellness continues into 2012. There is wide support of this in consumer sentiment towards products and services that cater to the spiritual and peace seeker, with increasing focus on products like healthy eating and lifestyles, interest in Eastern philosophies, particularly yoga, and surging sales in new thought products and people such as Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, and Eckhart Tolle. Looks like spiritual wellness is becoming a big industry, and you know what? I don't have a problem with that in the slightest. Yes, I'm a spiritual wellness groupie. This resurgence and passion towards all topics spiritual started for me with one of the most dramatic examples of renewed interest in spiritual topics outside of mainstream Christianity, and that is with The Secret. The Secret, which came out in 2006, sold over 2 million copies with over $65 million in revenues. But I digress. Sorry, I just get so excited about the upswing in interest in this stuff. The point I am getting to is that even with all this increased interest in all things regarding spiritual wellness, there are still so many things people suffer with. I think that people get really motivated to make some serious changes in their lives, but get discouraged when some of the new methods they try regarding spiritual wellness just don't pan out for them. But the reason they don't pan out is not usually because the method itself is flawed, but unfortunately because our beliefs about them are. The intention behind making a change is there for sure, but the wholehearted belief and knowing around the method or practice you're trying to make in these changes is just not there. It's usually approached like a spiritual experiment, like, well, I'll try this new meditation or spiritual practice or read this book, I guess, but I don't know. Well, sorry folks, if you're not going to go for it, then wait until something moves you so much you feel compelled to go for it. You must be committed to the practice, whatever practice it is that you are choosing. You must be committed wholeheartedly. You can't sort of jump off the diving board. You have to go for it, or you have to climb back down the ladder. I'm not one to look a gift horse in the mouth. The excitement I feel about people more and more looking inwards towards a different dimension of spiritual empowerment is awesome. But I encourage those that have opened their minds and hearts enough to try something to hang in there, and here are a few tips for sticking with it. The reason many of us find the spiritual climb so disheartening at times is because we have been in the flow of outward beliefs and mindsets for a very long time. Dabbling in a new spiritual practice like deep meditation, affirmation, expanded sense of prayer, or even things like angelic intervention, long-distance healing, and law of attraction, well, these are hard to stick because we're going against the flow of our conditioned self. Have you ever tried to swim up a river's current? Pretty tough, and you usually don't get very far. Now some might say, well, if these practices are so powerful, then the practice itself should overcome the resistance to it. Au contraire, my friend. These practices, by the ancient wisdom that designed them, are intended to be done in mind, body, and spirit simultaneously. You must believe in them to realize any change results from them. Belief comes from intellectual agreement, which is what most people have to even try these practices, and the agreement with the heart, which is what is usually missing. So tip number 1 is to really believe and have a great feeling about the practice you're trying. The resistance to these practices comes from a pervasive and enduring belief system that we have adhered to regarding the smallness of the human, and particularly the smallness of you. The idea of you not being able to change the things in your life that you want to, and that people are overall a victim of circumstance, is overwhelming. Spiritual insight and enlightenment must come from a choice each of us makes. A choice. The design of the spiritual seeker to have to come face to face with the reasons behind their resistance to make these changes is intentional. It's the scraping off of the crud of your heart and soul to allow in this amazing new insight and experience. If starting a spiritual practice without having to develop a deep understanding of our current limitations and realization of how they do not serve us was automatic, then frankly, there wouldn't be any need for the spiritual practice. Use the practice itself to gain this freedom for the resistance we have to it. Then the portals of spiritual wonder and awe will begin to open. So tip number 2 is doing a little soul searching to identify your resistant beliefs and understand where they came from. In my book, Finding Home, Breaking Free from Limits, I dive deeply into the process most people go through to develop these binding limitations in our lives. Many times they are totally unconscious to us, and yet they impact our lives in significant ways. Raising up the awareness about these limiting beliefs gives us the opportunity to make unlimited choices in our lives. There are many tools and practices shared in my book that assist the readers to understand their limitations and transcend them. I understand it's easy to say or even think about the things we want to see changed in our lives. Profound spiritual insights shared by some of the greatest teachers, like Gandhi's "Be the change you want to see," and Jesus' teachings of "the kingdom of God is within you," are easy to intellectualize, but much more complex to demonstrate by living them. The key is to see what is blocking your vision. Judging others, self-criticizing, fear, guilt, unworthiness, and the list goes on endlessly for the limits we place on ourselves. Beginning to realize the falsity of these tired old beliefs and hanging on to the moonbeam of spiritual empowerment and divine experiences at the same time is truly the making of a spiritual warrior. Do not grow weary in your path to spiritual wellness. Look for practices and ideas that really resonate with you, and know that your work is firstly about discovering in a compassionate and non-judgmental way the old ideas about yourself and transcending those with your chosen practice to the new and expanded version of you. Have some fun with it. Look for practices that give you joy and make you laugh. Having a few of these in your arsenal of spiritual tools is really handy when you get done doing the dirty business of house cleaning the old ego toilet. Tip number 3, never give up. Many, many blessings and namaste. Until next time.